Imagine an intelligence agent just watching a monitor as this piece of software quietly sifts through a highly classified government server,
Right.
and it finds a fatal security flaw that human engineers just completely missed for years. And imagine it doing this in like a matter of hours.
Yeah, sounds crazy.
It does, but that didn't happen in a sci-fi movie. I mean, that actually happened this week. So welcome everyone to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are looking at a week where artificial intelligence officially became a piece of physical infrastructure, a geopolitical weapon, and a literal battlefield all at once.
All at the same time.
Exactly. Just to set the stage, today is Sunday, June 28th, 2026. And the data we are unpacking today was collected over this really frantic 8-day stretch from June 20 to 27, 2026.
Yeah, and the sheer volume of structural shifts we saw in hardware supply chains, cybersecurity frameworks, and direct government intervention over these last 8 days is just staggering.
It really is.
We're moving from the theoretical phase of AI
Yeah.
into, the hard physical reality of it.
Which is exactly why you are tuning into Macroeconomy AI, and today's broadcast is titled AI Observatory, week of June 20 to 27, 2026. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And before we pull apart the data, just a quick word on our mission. Channel. Macroeconomy AI is dedicated to bringing a compilation of analyses and news on macroeconomics, technology, and artificial intelligence.
Right.
And today's deep dive is brought to you by SecureNet VPN, ensuring your enterprise data remains yours no matter where your team is working. Secure your connection today at securenet.com.
Which is a pretty fitting sponsor.
Right?
Yeah, considering how much of today's analysis really hinges on data vulnerabilities and intellectual property theft.
I couldn't agree more. And, if you're joining us today, my co-host is here to help us cut through all this noise. We have a massive stack of reports to get through.
We really do.
So we need to understand the structural foundation first. Let's start with the money. There's been this lingering anxiety that generative AI is just this bottomless capital expenditure pit.
Yeah, the CapEx black hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the math finally crossed a major threshold this week.
It did. If we dive into the macro perspective, specifically combining the latest data from the Exponential View and Bloomberg reports, a major economic inflection point just hit the ledger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. For the second consecutive quarter, global AI revenues, and this is excluding China, they reached $25 billion in Q1 of 2026.
Okay, so $25 billion in actual realized revenue. Put that into context for the infrastructure costs for us.
That is the crucial part. That $25 billion officially surpasses the estimated $21 billion in depreciation cost.
Wait, really?
Yeah, for all the specialized chips and data centers that are currently running these models. So this means the industry is now sitting at a $110 billion annualized run rate.
That's massive.
It's scaling 3 times faster than the early internet, mobile application adoption, or even the shift to cloud computing.
So we are officially net positive on the gross unit economics. And the companies selling the shovels in this gold rush are just seeing eye-watering returns. But it's not the consumer software companies making the real money yet.
Right.
It's the physical hardware suppliers.
Exactly. The hardware beneficiaries are operating in just a completely different financial reality right now.
Wow.
I mean, look at the data from Micron's Q3 fiscal 2026 results.
Those numbers were insane.
They reported $41.5 billion in revenue. That is a 346% year-over-year increase.
Just astronomical.
And their gross margins hit an astonishing 84.9%.
Which is practically unheard of for physical hardware manufacturing, right?
It is. But it's because they have a near monopoly on a very specific bottleneck, which is HBM4 memory.
Right.
They're pushing this memory into high-volume production explicitly for NVIDIA's Vera Rubin platform.
Yeah.
These new AI processors are just so fast that they literally starve for data without this highly specialized high-bandwidth memory.
It makes sense.
And we also saw SK Hynix, the other dominant memory supplier, pull off the largest U.S. IPO of 2026.
Oh, yeah. They raised, what, nearly $30 billion?
$29.4 billion, yeah, for the exact same reason.
Okay. But I want to introduce a little skepticism here because this reminds me a lot of the 19th century railroad boom.
Interesting.
It feels like we are all standing on the platform cheering because the daily ticket sales are finally covering the train maintenance. But that totally ignores the catastrophic crushing debt that these companies took on to buy the steel tracks in the first place.
Right, the initial outlay.
Yeah, if one major route fails, the whole enterprise just collapses.
What's fascinating here is that analogy cuts right to the structural fragility of this market. Yes, chip makers are having a historic run,
Sure.
but the margin for error for the software companies actually buying all this infrastructure is razor thin. Oracle is our prime case study this week.
Oh man, Oracle.
Yeah. Their stock just crashed 19% in 5 sessions. They wiped out $80 billion in market cap in a matter of days.
I mean, that's the worst week for Oracle since the dot-com bubble burst in 2001. Why the sudden panic?
Because they released an annual report detailing their capital expenditures. They're ramping up CapEx to nearly $56 billion for fiscal 2026.
Just to build the data centers.
Exactly, just to house these chips. Investors panicked because Oracle is already carrying $156 billion in debt,
Wow.
and they have a negative $23.7 billion free cash flow. This means they are burning cash aggressively to build infrastructure before they ever see a return.
So they're leveraged to the hilt.
And the tipping point for the market was the revelation that over 50% of their remaining performance obligations backlog is tied to a single client.
Let me guess. OpenAI.
OpenAI.
So if OpenAI stumbles or, shifts strategy, Oracle is left holding a $156 billion bag of server racks.
Precisely. The depreciation costs still consume more than 2/3 of the industry's revenue.
Okay.
So these companies have a very narrow window to cover the massive costs of energy, labor, and debt financing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Oracle is taking on massive, crushing debt to buy hardware from companies like NVIDIA and Micron to serve OpenAI. But OpenAI realizes that if they stay reliant on that exact same hardware supply chain, their own long-term margins will eventually collapse.
Yeah, they see the writing on the wall.
So they decided to stop buying tickets on someone else's train and just build their own engine.
That is exactly the strategic pivot we saw with the reveal of the jalapeno chip.
Walk us through what jalapeno actually is, because the timeline they announced just broke my brain.
So, jalapeno is officially designated as OpenAI's custom intelligence processor. It's a proprietary inference chip co-developed with Broadcom, and they have Celestica handling the system integration.
Okay.
But what's really shocking the semiconductor industry is the timeline. They went from initial concept to tape out in just 9 months.
Which is, let's clarify tape out for anyone who doesn't, spend their weekends reading semiconductor engineering forums.
Good idea.
Tape out is that final, terrifying stage where the digital design is finished and literally sent off to the foundry to be physically printed onto silicon.
Exactly.
Doing that in 9 months is absurd. Usually validation and testing take years. How did they pull that off?
It's a feedback loop. OpenAI understands its own software workloads better than anyone else on the planet. They know the exact memory, network, and computing patterns of their large language models.
Right.
So instead of buying a general-purpose processor from NVIDIA that is good at everything, they designed an application-specific integrated circuit, or ASIC, that only does exactly what their models need.
Okay, that makes sense.
And to hit that 9-month tape-out, they actually used their own advanced AI models to accelerate the actual design, layout, and optimization of the physical chip.
Wait, so we literally have AI systems designing the physical brains for future AI systems?
Yes, and they're planning to deploy these into gigawatt-scale data centers by the end of 2026. This is all about escaping the hardware bottlenecks and those massive markups dragging down companies like Oracle.
Just cutting out the middleman entirely.
Exactly. By owning the inference hardware, the chips that actually generate the answers for millions of users every day, OpenAI controls its own operational destiny.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the battleground isn't just about who owns the physical silicon and the data centers anymore.
No, it's not.
The real war has shifted aggressively into intellectual property and geopolitics. The cargo on the train is suddenly just as contested as the tracks.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the explosive letter Anthropic sent to the U.S. Senate Banking Committee on June 10th.
Oh, this was wild.
They exposed what they officially term an adversarial distillation attack perpetrated by operators linked to Alibaba's Quinn AI lab.
Let's break down the data on that attack. What actually happened?
Between April 22nd and June 5th, these operators just hammered Anthropic's Claude Mythos preview model. They hit it with over 28.8 million interactions, using roughly 25,000 automated fake accounts.
I want to really dig into what a distillation attack actually is so we're all on the same page. Let's look at it this way. It's like paying a Michelin star chef for a brilliant, complex meal.
Okay. Right.
But instead of eating it, you take it to a lab, reverse engineer the recipe, and use it to open a cheap fast food clone right next door.
That's exactly it.
You use the Michelin chef's genius to train your own cooks for pennies on the dollar. And crucially, because you only copied the final dish, your fast food joint operates without paying for any of the health and safety inspectors the original chef relies on.
That is a perfect conceptual map for distillation.
Hmm.
It's digital money laundering of intellectual property.
Wow.
A foreign adversary bombards a highly secure frontier model with complex questions. They scrape the brilliant outputs and then use those outputs to train a smaller, cheaper model how to mimic advanced reasoning and software engineering capabilities.
So they're just bypassing all the hard work.
Yes. And as you pointed out, because they are just scraping raw outputs, the resulting clone completely strips away all the safety guardrails, alignment protocols, and security controls the original creators spent millions of dollars building.
And this isn't just an abstract debate about copyright either. It is causing direct economic damage right now in the market.
Look at the open market data. The Exponential View report analyzed API usage on OpenRouter from June 2025 to June 2026. The market share of tokens requested from the top 3 frontier models, from Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic, plummeted from 72% down to just 33%.
That is a massive migration. Users are just abandoning the premium models.
They are migrating to cheaper, open source, and Chinese models for a vast majority of their tasks. This distillation, this IP theft, is actively fragmenting the market.
Right.
It forces the leading American companies to constantly prove that their secure, premium models are worth the massive price difference.
But the lost revenue is really only a secondary concern here, I think. Stealing these models is terrifying specifically because of what a frontier AI, completely stripped of its safety guardrails, is capable of doing to critical infrastructure.
Exactly.
I mean, a stolen recipe for a burger is one thing, a stolen recipe that can dismantle a power grid is another.
Which leads us directly into the cyber domain. On June 22nd, the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, so that's the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, issued an unprecedented joint alert.
Right.
Their formal conclusion is that frontier AI models will transform offensive cyber attack capabilities in months, not years.
Months, not years. I mean, that is incredibly stark language from agencies like the NSA and CISA, who are generally known for their bureaucratic restraint.
They aren't dealing in hypotheticals anymore. They're watching AI automate the discovery of zero-day vulnerabilities, map out attack vectors, and drastically lower the technical skill level required for a bad actor to conduct a sophisticated cyber operation.
And we actually saw hard evidence of this offensive capability this week. An official confirmed to the Associated Press that Anthropic's Claude Mythos model was put through an internal stress test with U.S. intelligence agencies.
Yeah, under a program called Project Glasswing.
Right. And in a matter of hours, the AI identified severe vulnerabilities in highly classified U.S. government systems, flaws that human engineers hadn't found.
It is important to note that the official clarified identifying a vulnerability is not the exact same as successfully exploiting it.
Sure.
However, the sheer speed hours to find flaws in air-gapped classified networks is exactly why the Five Eyes are sounding the alarm. The asymmetry between attack and defense is widening.
But hold on, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the defensive capabilities of these exact same models are equally staggering.
They are. The shield is evolving just as fast as the sword. Take OpenAI's Daybreak platform, which just launched an initiative called Patch the Planet.
That sounds like a superhero movie.
Basically. They unleashed their GPT 5.5 cyber model onto critical open-source infrastructure projects.
And the results were immediate.
It found a 23-year-old flaw in the OpenBSD kernel, a vulnerability that had been sitting in the code entirely undetected by thousands of human engineers for over 2 decades.
That's just wild.
Even more critically, the AI identified and helped security teams patch a severe vulnerability in the Firefox browser just 2 days before P2 in Berlin.
And that's a major international hacker convention, right?
Exactly. That AI-driven patch was so comprehensive that 5 of the 6 hacker teams registered to exploit Firefox had to completely drop out of the competition.
Let's pause on that for a second because the mechanism is fascinating. How does an AI find a 23-year-old bug? It really comes down to fatigue and scope, right? A human engineer gets tired. They can only hold so many variables in their head while reading legacy C++ code. But the AI doesn't get bored.
No, it doesn't.
It can instantly map out complex variable interactions across millions of lines of code, spotting a logic error from 2003 that no human has had the patience to track down.
Exactly. It operates with a relentless, holistic view of the architecture. But this dual-use nature, the reality that the exact same pattern-matching engine that secures a browser can also probe a classified defense network, is forcing a massive paradigm shift in how these tools reach the public.
Which brings us to the government's response. For the first time in history, the U.S. government is actively gatekeeping who gets access to the frontier of software engineering.
We saw two unprecedented regulatory moves on June 26th. First, OpenAI launched a limited preview of their new GPT 5.6 family.
Right.
That comprises the Sol, Terra, and Luna models. Sol's is their new flagship, setting benchmark records in genomics, terminal command execution, and cybersecurity.
But there was a catch.
A huge catch. At the explicit request of the Trump administration, access to these models was restricted to a highly curated list of roughly 20 government-approved partners.
Wait, so they literally had to clear the user list with the executive branch before they could launch the product?
Yes. OpenAI publicly stated this shouldn't become the long-term standard, as it deprives the broader developer ecosystem of the best tools.
Obviously.
But on the exact same day, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick sent a formal letter to Anthropic. Recall that Anthropic had their models suspended globally earlier in the month.
Right. And what did the Commerce Department dictate in that letter?
The letter authorized Anthropic to redeploy their enterprise-grade Claude Mythos 5 model, but strictly limited the rollout to a restricted group of cyber defense partners and critical infrastructure providers.
Wow.
Meanwhile, their consumer-facing model, Fable 5, remains entirely suspended globally.
So as an impartial observer looking at this structural shift, I just have to ask, is the era of the open Wild West AI officially dead?
It certainly looks like it.
Because whether it's the Trump administration asking OpenAI to restrict access or Commerce Secretary Lutnick legally restricting Anthropic, the result is the same. The government is now treating these highly capable models like weapons-grade uranium.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
They're establishing a pre-release supervision pattern, leaving independent developers and consumers completely locked out of the absolute cutting edge.
It represents a profound tension between innovation and national security. The government's immediate priority is ensuring that foreign adversaries don't get immediate API-level access to the automated cyber capabilities we just discussed.
Right, which is understandable.
But you're correct. The byproduct of that security is a localized freeze on consumer access to frontier intelligence.
And what's fascinating is the split screen we are watching. While the government frantically builds walls around the bleeding edge of AI slightly older, enterprise-grade AI is completely infiltrating the everyday workforce. It is night and day.
The corporate adoption velocity is just breathtaking. This week, Google announced the computer use is now natively integrated into their Gemini 3.5 Flash API.
Okay, so explain computer use.
This isn't just text generation. It means the AI agent can literally see a user's screen, control the mouse, type on the keyboard, and independently navigate web browsers to complete multi-step tasks.
It's acting as a fully autonomous digital employee.
Exactly. And then you have Samsung. This is the same company that famously enacted a total ban on generative AI in 2023 after their engineers accidentally leaked proprietary source code.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, they executed a total reversal. Samsung just rolled out ChatGPT Enterprise and OpenAI's Codex to all of their employees in South Korea and across their entire global device experience division.
That is massive.
It marks one of the largest, most comprehensive corporate AI deployments in history.
So we have AI moving the mouse and writing code at massive corporations. How is this actually impacting the human workers on the other end of the screen?
We got incredible insight into that from the Anthropic Economic Index, specifically their Cadences edition released on June 26. The telemetry data shows that AI usage now perfectly mirrors human biological and professional rhythms.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, work-related queries plummet on the weekends. Users lean on the AI to aggregate and summarize news first thing in the morning. And remarkably, requests for sleep advice and wellness tips peak precisely at 5:00 a.m.
I find that weekend drop interesting, though. Is that really a sign of AI mimicking human biology? Or is it just evidence that AI is still strictly viewed as a corporate B2B tool and, no one actually wants to talk to a chatbot on a Saturday afternoon?
That is a very fair critique of the current market positioning.
Yeah.
But regardless of weekend use, the survey data attached to the report is a massive wake-up call. Over a third of the respondents expect AI to be capable of managing the majority of their daily work within a single year.
So what does this all mean for the labor market? I mean, if a third of the workforce genuinely believes an AI can do most of their job by 2027, what happens to the humans? Are we just accelerating toward mass technological unemployment?
That is the exact crisis a new initiative called Raise US
Hmm.
is attempting to preempt. It was launched this week by former Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo and former Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb.
Okay.
It has immense capital behind it, over $500 million in commitments from Amazon, Microsoft, OpenAI, and Anthropic.
$500 million is serious leverage. But what is the actual strategy? Because historically, the default Silicon Valley answer to labor displacement has been universal basic income. Just write everyone a check.
And that is what makes Raise US notable. They are explicitly rejecting universal basic income as the primary solution.
Oh, really?
Instead, they are bypassing federal bureaucracy and partnering directly with state governors who control community colleges and local credentialing systems.
Oh, smart.
The goal is to aggressively rescale American workers to manage and direct these AI systems, rather than just passively receiving a stipend.
I see the logic. A stipend doesn't replace the purpose or structure of a career.
Exactly. Gina Raimondo framed it very bluntly during the launch. She said, if we build the best AI systems in the world and leave millions of Americans behind, we haven't won anything. We will have automated our own decline.
Automated our own decline. That is a heavy, clarifying thought.
It really is.
It really encapsulates the tension of this entire 8-day period. On one hand, you have an industry generating $110 billion using AI to design its own silicon chips in 9 months and fixing 23-year-old software bugs.
Yeah.
On the other hand, adversaries are distilling that brilliance to strip away safety protocols, and governments are stepping in to heavily restrict public access.
It is a precarious balancing act.
Yeah.
We are laying the steel tracks while the train is already running at full speed.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder today. If these frontier AI models are now capable of identifying deeply hidden vulnerabilities in highly classified air-gapped networks in a matter of hours,
Right.
and governments are frantically trying to lock these models down behind digital walls to keep us safe, what happens when an adversary's AI starts finding vulnerabilities in the very digital systems the government is using to try and restrict it?
A sobering question regarding the limits of digital containment. And before we close, our formal notice. Legal notice. This content is exclusively for informational and educational purposes, compiling data, projections, and analyses from public market sources. The material does not express ideological bias and does not constitute investment recommendation, financial, legal, or tax advice of any kind. Economic and tech projections are subject to frequent revisions in light of new data and market facts.
Always changing.
Similarly, past performance does not guarantee future returns. The goal of this space is to introduce concepts and stimulate academic and professional debate. Strategic, financial, or wealth decisions require in-depth and personalized analysis. Therefore, always consult qualified professionals and specialists before making your decisions.
Thank you so much for breaking all this down with me, and thank you to everyone listening for joining us on this deep dive. That was today's Macroeconomy AI. We'll leave it here. You all stay well and keep an eye out for our new broadcasts. Subscribe to our channel, access the links, and follow Macroeconomy AI on social media.